listening to Dem Boyz podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Joe Valle and Shane Carter.
Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, thank you for listening to Dem Boyz podcast episode 13. My name is Joe Valle, that's at @AmornCupAJoe on Twitter. And joining me today, as always, one of the hardest working guys on NFL Twitter, Shane Carter, that's at ShaneCarterTX. What's up, Shane, and how's it going?
It's going good, man. How's the family?
We're good. Everything's going good so far. Little girl's growing up too fast. How about you?
No kids, but I'll keep you updated.
Okay, sounds good. How are the puppers?
Oh, the dogs. Oh, they're annoying as hell and needy as shit.
Don't you get one like every week?
Nah, it just feels like if like an animal on the street comes in, they like take shifts of like who wants to annoy me next and who's like wants attention next. The little ones like that, they're lucky I love them. Otherwise, I let them all run free and let the world do what they will.
Awesome. Hey, you're saving the world one puppy at a time. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into the news. There's a developing story that happened over the weekend here. We're recording this on Monday. We tried to record it on Sunday, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, in a developing story, edge rusher Randy Gregory posted a tweet on his Twitter account, and it's a screenshot of his NFLPA's representative's account, Joe Briggs, and it's actually showing that Joe Briggs blocked Randy Gregory on Twitter. In the caption, he said, "Folks, I've been asking my rep for the NFLPA for correspondence regarding my case for reinstatement, his advocacy for me, and this is his response. Mind you, this was after 3 emails I sent me," which I believe he meant he sent me. Joe Briggs did reply to him, "Really? Okay." And then Randy replied right after, "Oh, you thought I was joking." And a bunch of people are clowning on both Randy and Joe Briggs. Right after that, Randy Gregory did tweet one more time. He did say, "I understand what I've done to damage my career. I've taken responsibility. I'm not asking for any sympathy, but I'll be damned if I let people claim they're supporting me, but actively try to prevent my progress. Football career or not," and left a snake emoji. He did also previously tweet out a message that he misses playing in the NFL. I won't go into the whole thing, but if you go to Randy Gregory's Twitter account at @RandyGregory_4, you can see his little post, but he's basically saying that he's blaming COVID and then also, individuals that are preventing him from moving forward with his reinstatement. So, Shane, what do you think is going on here? It's been a while with his reinstatement case. We've seen that Aldon Smith is back. We've seen other players be reinstated into the league, but it seems every year, more and more time passes by with Randy Gregory's situation. I think he's turning it around. I think he's a good guy and he just wants to play football. But now this is going on. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I agree with you on the Aldon Smith territory, just because Aldon Smith got reinstated and he had not only been suspended for substance abuse, but also for domestic violence. And so his situation is a lot more severe, whereas Randy Gregory has been otherwise a model citizen outside the field. He's just been testing negative for drugs, for weed. And under the guise of the new CBA, he wouldn't be suspended for that sort of thing. So I'm not really sure, and I think you and I are both on the same page here. We're not really sure why he would, while he's being asked to do all these drug tests, he's passed them all, and he applied for reinstatement back in March, but we've gone on 6 months and heard nothing. The season's about to start. It's kind of hard to pick a side here simply because, we've been, I don't want to say duped before by Randy Gregory, because, I mean, he obviously they've given him chances, and for a minute you think, okay, he's turning it around, he's changed, he's doing the necessary things, but every time that they've done it, he tests negative and he's just proven unreliable. As far as the Joe Briggs situation, for those that don't know, Joe Briggs is an NFL Players Association rep. He's actually a graduate from TCU. He has a law degree from Florida State, and he's worked at the NFLPA. I'm not sure how many years, but he's been there for a minute. So he's qualified, and obviously, if he knows something, he knows something, right? So his credentials would let you know
right,
that he would probably be someone who, if we were to ask him about the process of getting reinstated, we could rely on him as a credible source, right? And so someone like Joe Briggs is, not only blocking him on Twitter, but even after blocking him, responding back to being called out. Obviously, there's more to this than just simply, Randy Gregory is just apply for reinstatement. He's doing all the right things. Obviously, there's something that we don't know. And I think that as the coming days and weeks, and as we get closer and closer to the season, we're going to find more and more information about the story as it progresses.
Right, and it most likely has some legal issues going on with it. That's why, not a lot of information's out right now. Joe Briggs has kind of subtweeted, the situation, saying stuff like, nah, we good, noted, watching, go ahead, I'm here. So, kind of weird random tweets like that, but it's obviously that he's just subtweeting about the Randy situation. And he did also say that he sees that his mentions and threats to him, or I don't know if that means like actual threats or people are just like, talking smack in the comments. That's kind of like his biggest tweet there with all the replies. So I think he's just kind of tired of like all the mentions with the Gregory situation. I'm sure like Cowboys fans are going after him, trying to figure out what's going on. It's like a secret and an unknown, so people want to know what's going on. So it seems like people are giving him a rough time. So we'll see in due time what happens and what is really going on. I'm sure it'll come out eventually. So anything else you want to talk about the situation with Randy Gregory, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are both on the side of if he passes all these tests and he does the right things off the field like he seemingly has done. He's been pretty much radio silent on social media, and like I said earlier, under the new CBA, even if he tested that he had used weed, that's no longer something that they're suspending players for, right? So. And if that was the only thing he was ever accused of doing or even proven guilty of doing, whatever it is, then this really should be an issue. He should be reinstated. And I feel like we've mentioned this at one point or another, you and I have, that if all the Cowboys players were healthy and unsuspended and ready to go, right, on the defense, he might not be the most important or even the best overall player, but you could argue he's their best athlete on the defensive side.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
On a defensive line, where they've loaded up on the interior at the defensive tackle position, and they're looking for help on the edges outside of Hank and Jalen Smith, like coming in from the middle linebacker position, like shadowing the offensive line. They're looking for more pass rush from these guys, and I think having Randy Gregory out there with what we do know about him and his skill set, it'd be nice to have him out there. And so for the sake of the team and the success, I hope he gets reinstated. But I feel like we're just now learning what's about to explode into a bigger story in the coming weeks.
Right, I agree. And we've seen him, come back to the field and play at a high level. He's missed a lot of time, but every time he gets his opportunity, he shines. He's like a gem out there. That he's got the talent. Like you said, he's an athletic freak, and the game just comes naturally to him. So hopefully everything works out. I hope the best for him, as a player to help the team, but also, as an individual. He's gone through a lot, and it seems like he really wants to turn it around. He has this huge opportunity to be a player in the NFL and possibly a star. I think we said before, he's still on his rookie contract, right? So he's cheap. So it'd be great to have, a really, really good pass rusher on a cheap deal right now. So we just hope for the best and see what happens. Any news that pops up, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll try and get that to you guys as quick as we can. So let's move on here. The deadline to opt out of the 2020 NFL season due to COVID concerns was August 6th at 3 p.m. Central Time, and many players around the league have decided to opt out of the season, including 3 Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys that decided to opt out were cornerback Maurice Canady, fullback Jameez Olawale, and 2020 undrafted free agent wide receiver Stephen Gundry. They're not significant players to the team, other than Olawale, obviously, but around the league we have seen big names. Probably the biggest that I've seen, in my opinion, would be Pro Bowler linebacker Dante Hightower for the New England Patriots, and in total there was about 69 players that did opt out of the 2020 season. So specifically for the Cowboys, Shane, I know it's only these 3 players. Do you think it's really going to make that big of a difference, missing out on Olawale or even Canady, the cornerback depth that we have, or just the defensive back depth that we have on the team right now? What do you think this is going to do to the team?
Well, I was never really sold that Canady was going to make the roster to begin with. I had for a while compared his situation to Nolan Carroll when the Cowboys signed him a few years ago to a 3-year deal. Never made it out of camp. So I believe that Canady was a signing really just to beef up the depth in a depleted secondary and potentially, compete for a spot. But I mean, they went out and they drafted 2 corners. And they bring back 3 guys who all started for them, and they bring back an even more capable they go out and sign an even more capable vet in Chris Worley. And who can play, by the way, both cornerback and safety. So I thought Kennedy was sort of on the outside looking in anyway, barring an injury or something. So I didn't really see him making the roster to begin with. Guidry was kind of an interesting option just because I thought, he showed some flashes last year in preseason, but I think, you and I are on the same boat that we didn't really see him, at least not this year, as a serious candidate for the roster. We thought they had the 5 receivers set with their starting trio, Devin Smith, and then Cedric Wilson, and then guys like John Bay Johnson, Aaron Parker, your guy Kendrick Rogers were all going to compete for that 6th spot, maybe Ventel Bryant. Guidry was a guy I thought would be more likely on the practice. Yeah, like you said, Yamiz Alawale, he was probably the biggest loss of them because he was a starter. And now I think he's more of a B starter. He's not, he ain't Kyle Juszczyk, who was the best fullback in the game, but he's still a fullback familiar with Kellen Moore's offense, their quarterback, the running back. They know what they like to do. They know how they like to do it. He has time and down with Dak in the passing game. In case he does go out for passes, he was a capable run blocker. Not a great pass blocker, but a capable run blocker. And so, you miss having those guys out there. Even though you could have always upgraded the position, having that continuity, that familiarity is always good, especially in professional athletics. And so, while I agree, obviously it wouldn't have been as big a loss, say, if Tank, you remember who we had talked about, was threatening or hinting at least at potentially, stepping out for this year. That would have been maybe the biggest loss on the defense. I mean, I think without a doubt, it probably would have been the biggest loss on the defense.
That'd be the biggest name in the whole league if he did that.
Oh, yeah, if he did that, yeah. I mean, because like you said, like Dante Hightower was probably the biggest known name of anyone who opted out other than the Damian Lewis, the Kansas City running back who scored the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of big names, quote-unquote big names, that opted out. There were a lot of capable starters and guys who were either not going to make the roster or competing for a spot. And so you're right. The effect won't be as big had it been someone major, but it's still going to be an effect. And now there's a brand new roster spot opened up for maybe that rookie fullback they got, the undrafted one, Siwo Olanalu. I'm sorry if he's listening by chance. I mispronounced your name. I do apologize. I think you and I talked about it when we were just texting that you like the idea of them putting Blake Bell back there because he's more of a blocker anyway, and that way it frees up a tight end position spot for someone, maybe one of my guys who's an undrafted free agent, like Sean McKeon or Charlie Tampapeo, one of those guys who are pretty athletic and better receivers than Blake Bell is.
Right.
Blake
you were
Bell,
saying before, sorry to interrupt, but you were saying before in a previous show that Mike McCarthy loves to keep a lot of tight ends on the roster. So this might be a way to keep an even extra tight end, just, change his position or just keep him as a tight end, but he's technically playing fullback.
No, absolutely. And also this means that they have like a bigger guy playing fullback who has receiving ability. Blake Bell has the ability to catch. He is not looked at as a receiver, as a tight end. He's much better as a blocker. He's a fantastic blocker at that. I mean, if you took his blocking ability and Blake Jarwin's athleticism and receiving ability, you have George Kittle. I'm just going to say, you have George, that's who you got. You got George Kittle. I think, you put him at the fullback position. He's not a receiving threat even still, but at the very least, that gives you a bigger, just as capable, if not like more capable guy to catch the ball at the backfield, a much better blocker. Again, I think Yamiz Alawale is a good blocker. I think Blake Bell's a great blocker. And also, it frees up an extra tight end position. I mean, because now players like Dalton Schultz are like, okay, I think my spot is safe. As a matter of fact, that forces Dalton Schultz to become the tight end too, and it forces him to, prove that he was worth that 4th-round pick because he becomes the automatic tight end too to Blake Jarwin. And then it opens up a potential 3rd or maybe even 4 tight end spots for the undrafted guys, or Cole Hikatini, who was on the practice squad last year. I don't know if you know anything about Cole Hikatini, but I was a big fan of his at Louisville. He's a much better receiver than he is a blocker. I'll put it that way. He's not a great blocker. He's a great receiver. And so Yamiz Alawale leaves a hole at that spot, but it also frees up a lot of potential in different ways that they could shift around the roster. And it also gives these undrafted guys, in more ways than one, a more realistic shot at the final 55-man roster.
Right, and speaking of roster moves, Sunday there was a pair of players that were removed from the reserve/COVID-19 list. Both wide receiver John Johnson and quarterback Savion Smith were activated to the active roster on Sunday. And to make room, the Cowboys did waive my guy, unfortunately, wide receiver Texas A&M Kendrick Rogers. So, those guys are back on the team. Fortunately, Kendrick Rogers, better luck next time. Maybe he'll end up on some other squad, maybe a practice squad somewhere, and we'll see him down the road. That's definitely a name I'm going to follow to see what goes on. Hey, yeah.
He's playing the XFL with The Rock.
Hey, I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome. Do you think this makes any difference to the roster? I mean, it's just a minor roster move, adding another receiver and cornerback depth. So, these players may not even make the team. I think John Vea Johnson had a pretty good season last year, though. So I know he was great in camp, the brief moments he had during the season as well. So any comments you want to make on them?
Yeah, I mean, if you remember last year, John Vea Johnson was actually right there on the cusp of making the roster, remember? And he showed a lot of explosiveness, but he also had a lot of ball handling issues. And I think, you and I saw like a lot of explosion from him as like a potential wide receiver 6, because I know you liked him a lot last year, and I was kind of like, oh, he seems like a project player. I was a lot higher on Cedric Wilson because he was a lot more ready to play just based on college tape because he missed his rookie year. And so I think it's ironic that they lose a receiver and a cornerback to the opt-out, but they're able to replace him with another receiver and another cornerback. So the competition for those spots really didn't change all that much. Anything, I would argue that the cornerback position lessened a little bit because I think Canada is much more deserving of respect in terms of like making the roster than Savion Smith was, because he's actually played in the NFL. Canada has. And John Vea Johnson and Gregory were both undrafted free agents last year, but John Vea Johnson was already a step ahead of him. So if anything, what that did was it made the cornerbacks feel a little better about their position, and it made the receiving room a little bit more like, okay, so this guy's better. Who really is the guy for that 6th spot? Because McCarthy, if you look at his history, he keeps 6 receivers most of the time. Every now and then he'll keep 7. Every now and then. And a lot of times that 7th guy is he's a special teamer, kind of like your Matthew Slaters or your Bentel Bryants. The guys who are on kickoffs and punt returns, and they don't really play a whole lot of receiver. They're there really more for like the scrap plays, special teams. I think all it did was open up the receiving room a little bit more, and it tightened the cornerback room a little bit more.
Right. With no preseason, it's going to be kind of interesting on how that goes. But yeah, like you said, I like John Vea Johnson. He's had some flashes, so we'll see if he makes the team. And I think the more depth we have, especially with this season, when you never know a player might be out. Is it 4 weeks that it's mandatory, or 2 weeks that they have to be out for like mandatory?
I'm pretty sure it's 2 weeks. They get retested because like that's the quarantine stage is
right.
2 weeks. It's only 4. It goes beyond that if they're still testing positive for it, like it hadn't gone away.
Got it. So the 2 weeks is the typical quarantine and incubation period. But if by the end of the 2 weeks they still have it, I guess they have to have an additional 2 weeks. So if that were to happen, teams around the NFL, you're going to want to have as much depth as possible. I think, when it's all said and done and we're coming near playoffs and the Super Bowl run, the team with the most depth at the important positions, I guess every position is important, but, in every position, whoever has the most depth is going to end up, going the furthest and making the Super Bowl. Because can you imagine, playoff time and a star quarterback goes down? We're very lucky to have a very capable veteran quarterback in Andy Dalton behind Dak Prescott. But there's some teams out there that, they have unproven guys backing up their star quarterbacks. So thankfully, I guess not thankfully that he got sick, but Zeke already had coronavirus, and it's highly unlikely that he would get it again. So, he's going to be pretty good for the season going forward. But hope the best, and hope for the good health for the rest of the players in the league, and hope we have football this year, at least NFL football, because college football seems to be up in the air, and we should find out more about that this coming week. Let's go ahead and move on. In some exciting news, Amari Cooper had a recent interview with David Hellman of DallasCowboys.com, where he praised the Cowboys' first-round draft pick, CeeDee Lamb. Quote, "You have to draft the best player on the board. Everybody understands that. I think he's a great receiver, and I think with me and Michael Gallup going for 1,000 yards last year, I think the expectation is to have 3 1,000-yard receivers this year." Now that's exciting, and that's something every Cowboys fan wants to hear. He also later stated in the interview that me, Dak, and some other receivers, tight ends, running backs, we've all been working together pretty consistently for months now, working on our route running, working on the offense and everything like that. We've been getting a lot of work in, getting that timing right as we're going into minicamp or OTAs. Now obviously there was no preseason, but the team is practicing and trying to get everything in sync with the new coaching staff, but since everyone's familiar, they're just trying to get back in the groove of things, especially since stuff was delayed a little bit. So what do you think of these comments, Shane? Do you think it's possible for the Cowboys to have 3 1,000-yard receivers?
Well, yeah, because they almost did it last year. Randall Cobb was 172 yards away from having 1,000 yards, and like you said, Amari and Gallup both broke past 1,100, so it's very possible. And the reality is that Randall Cobb caught 66% of his passes last year. So every 3 passes, he caught at least 2. CD Lamb, he only had 62 catches last year, but he went for over 13, close to 1,400 yards. And so his average his yards per catch was about 21. Now, if you put that on a typical average rookie year, which is anywhere from 50 to 70 catches for rookie receivers who get a reasonable amount of targets, like they're in the starting trio, they usually get about 50 to 60 catches, right? So if we be conservative and give him something like, let's say 60. Let's say he breaks between that and gets 60 catches, right? And if he gets his 21 yards per reception average, because he was the best receiver in college football last year in terms of yards after the catch, you're looking at 1,200 yards right there, all right? But let's be a little more conservative, The reality is 21, 22 yards per catch in college football, especially among Big 12 defenses, is different when you're playing, the Niners or the Ravens, which the Cowboys had to play this year. So let's be a little more realistic. Let's say he gets 15 yards per reception, right? But we're going to stick with that that same 60 catches. He gets 900 yards, which is still admirable because 900 yards for a first-year receiver is good. Not every rookie receiver is going to be like Julio Jones, A.J. Green, Odell Beckham, and get, over 1,000 yards, make the Pro Bowl. It doesn't happen to everybody. Some players need a year or 2 to do that. I think it's reasonable. 1, the Cowboys already did it. And 2, there have been teams in the past that have had 3 1,000-yard receivers. Last team to do it was the 2008 NFC champion Arizona Cardinals, who had Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, and Steve Breslin. And yeah, like I said, they went to the Super Bowl that year. The even more interesting thing is how that affects Zeke. Zeke retweeted Ed Werder whenever Ed was chiming in about the receivers getting their touches and how it affected Zeke. And Zeke responded, "We all gonna eat." Because not only is it possible to have 3,000-yard receivers, it's possible to have 3,000-yard receivers and 1,000-yard rusher, because the 2004 Colts did that. Edgerrin James had 1,500 yards rushing. Reggie Wayne, Brandon Stokely, who never gets talked about, and the Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison all had over 1,000 yards that year. So the reality is that the Cowboys offense has the potential to do all that stuff. And if you look at the rule changes from 2004 to 2020, offenses now get more calls than the defenses do, right? So if anything, the Cowboys have a chance. The Cowboys have a chance to just demolish those numbers with the way that the refs are calling plays for the offense now. So it's not only possible, I think maybe we can look more along the lines of maybe next year that happened. And we should all be excited about CD Lamb, but let's ease him in there first. But not only is it possible, but I think at a certain point it's kind of expected.
Oh, it's definitely expected, especially with how high they took him with his pedigree in college. And honestly, this coming season, I think he might even have a better chance than Michael Gallup getting 1,000 yards. We've seen Dak Prescott work well with slot receivers. He did great. I mean, Cole Beasley was the leading receiver one year, right? And he was playing out of the slot. And it's pretty safe to assume that CeeDee Lamb is a much better player than Cole Beasley. So, he might see pushing 70 plus receptions from the slot, especially with the kind of athlete he is. He's physical. I know he's not, a speedster, but he knows how to get separation, and he's physical. So he's going to be great in the slot. You might even see him outside and maybe put Amari Cooper in the slot too with Mike McCarthy's offense. I think they're going to be doing a lot of fun things. We've talked about this before, but I really believe that the NFL is gearing more towards the college game and the spread and air raid. We're seeing that all over the league with, Kingsbury and Kyler Murray in Arizona. We're seeing Pat Mahomes do some crazy stuff in KC. But I mean, Andy Reid's always kind of been known, to do that as well. If they let Russ run wild in Seattle, I'm sure he could do some crazy stuff in the air with, he's starting to get some pretty good weapons up there too. So with the loaded offense that the Cowboys have and McCarthy's offense that he had in Green Bay, we could see the ball be slinging everywhere. And I think 3 1,000-yard receivers. I think you even mentioned it too, over a 700-yard receiving tight end. And then Zeke had 420 yards last year out of the backfield. So it's gonna be a fun season and a fun future for those fans who love offense. Sorry if you like defense, but the league is going towards offense. If you're gonna see anything from right. I mean, that happens in most sports, right? Look at the NBA. There's like no defense anymore. They're all scoring almost 150 points every single game. And 10 years ago, that was like a record or unheard of at the time. So
and LeBron James and James Harden are always on the free throw line.
Exactly, right? You can think of it that way. You can think of the three-pointer as a comparison to throwing the rock in football. So instead of running the ball and pounding it, we're just going to sling it everywhere and score as much as we can. If you can't get to 24, we're going to win every time. So as long as the defense bend, don't break, keep them under 20, let the offense do their thing, and good luck catching us.
I want to tack on to a couple of things you said there. First of all, we talk about college offenses innovating in the NFL. You didn't mention Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson innovating the spread offense, not the air raid, but the spread offense, and take it over from a traditional pro style offense that right. Baltimore and Houston used to run.
The option as well. You have to consider the quarterback as a threat too.
Yeah, the spread and air raid are all like kind of like taking over offenses, like you said. I would also go on to the earlier point about how Mike McCarthy would innovate the slot receivers when he used Randall Cobb in Green Bay. And I would look at Dak Prescott's first 4 years, and the three receivers he targeted the most was he threw to the slot the most, the X receiver after that, so whoever's playing the X at the time, whether it was Dez or if it was Amari or whoever was like the designated X, they were the next, and then it was the tight end position. So if we go based on that, the players he's going to throw to the most is going to be the slot. So either CD or Amari, they'll be interchangeable. Blake Jarwin, and then I guess who was playing X. Because not that he didn't trust the X, but if you look at the rookie year, he trusted his tight ends and his slot receiver the most. And because a lot of times Des Bryant was the one getting covered a lot, and he would just like break open for a big run here and there. Obviously in year 2, they had a full year with Des Bryant, but it didn't really work out. Year 3, you go half the season without Amari, and then the second half of the season with Amari. So he never really had a true X those first 8 games of the season. And obviously last year, he had a plethora of weapons. But I blamed it all on coaching, but I'm a little biased about that. So I think that you're right. Michael Gallup could be the one who suffers for this, but he also could benefit in a couple ways, just because now everyone's going to focus in on, their tight end position is no longer old man Witten. They got this young buck who can run. They upgraded the slot position. Amari Cooper's a paid man who's gonna swap in and out with CeeDee Lamb from the X to the slot, because like you said, that would open up his route tree because he can run from the slot. He definitely can. And everyone's gonna forget about 13. Everyone's gonna forget about him. The same thing happened with Reggie Wayne in Indianapolis. Everyone was focusing on Edgerrin James, and then all of a sudden they had Marvin Harrison, and then they had these tight ends like Dallas Clark and Pollard. And so, and Brandon Stokely started emerging a little bit as a safety option. And people didn't realize that Reggie Wayne was becoming a Pro Bowler right before their eyes, and it was too late before they could try and stop him. So it's possible, and I think if they incorporate those aspects of their offense in terms of the West Coast, and Dak let them use the spread offense and swapping Amari and CeeDee Lamb from the slot to the X position, let Michael Gallup play the Z. Like full-time Z. Don't let him play the slot. Keep him on the outside. They have a lot of ways they can move the ball down the field.
Right, and there's no way that defenses are going to be able to stack the box to stop Zeke anymore with the weapons we have on the outside and the slot at the tight end position that can go up the seam, pretty quickly instead of stumbling down the field. Sorry, Witt. You catch everything, but you can only go so fast. Good luck in Las Vegas. It's just weird seeing you in black and white, and your bald's kind of shiny now, or your head's kind of shiny now. So it's just weird. It's just weird. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time this year. It's going to be fun to watch. Like I said, they're not going to be able to stack the box anymore. It's going to open up the offense a lot more. Shane, real quick before we wrap it up. Last year, I don't know if it was just me, but I noticed that Dak sometimes seemed reluctant to throw it down the field when there was opportunities. I don't know if it's him that was reluctant in doing it, or that he hesitated, or if it was the coaching staff that kind of was in the mindset of, hey, just be safe, check it down, or maybe the deep route wasn't actually the first read, and maybe that's why he seemed reluctant to throw it, because he was actually looking at a different read at first. I think in this offense, with Michael Gallup, on the outside and everybody underneath, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to go deep. And I'm hoping that was more of the coaching staff and not Dak. And maybe with these weapons and, him being more familiar and him, getting more experience as well, he'll be comfortable throwing that ball. So what do you think before we get off? Do you think it was more Dak being reluctant and throwing the ball down the field? Or do you think it was coaching, telling him like, hey, let's just keep it safe and let's not throw it deep too much?
It's got to be a little bit of both. I know Kellen Moore wanted to incorporate Dak's ability to use Amari down the field because that was the guy he was looking for first, was Amari Cooper. But I also know that they wanted to incorporate more of the short game because they like to have the running game be a focal point of the offense. They wanted to burn the clock. Jason Garrett was very much a coach to not lose kind of coach. He would run the ball on first down. A lot of times do like a play action on second down, maybe like a straight drop back pass to the tight end or maybe to Randall Cobb on second down. And then third down, depending on the yardage, it was either a straight play action pass to Amari or it was a inside handoff to Zeke. It wasn't real creative. So I blame part of that on coaching. I also blame part of that on Dak, kind of second guessing himself a little bit because, there were times, let's not kid ourselves that Dak is a very confident, very poised quarterback who handles adversity well, and he's played well despite it, right? He's made his fair share of mistakes, and you can't deny that. I think Dak, whenever he played conservative, is only because he, a lot of times in the game, was already seeing so much rush, so many different looks, that he wanted to play it safe and just get the ball out of his hands and then spread the offense out more whenever the defense started to back off of him. So I think he was playing conservative only whenever the game flow called for it. As far as the coaching staff, I think they were trying to incorporate their beliefs of, no, we're gonna burn the clock. We'll score after we burn like 6-7 minutes off the clock, rather than taking those deep shots and just tearing a hole in the defense. So I think it's a little bit of both. I'm not gonna give a percentage because both deserve at least a share of the blame.
Right, cool. I felt the same way. There was just some times where I could see it where like the receiver was open, or if he wasn't open, it was worth a shot, a 50-50 chance, especially with someone like Michael Gallup or Amari Cooper. You throw it up, odds are they're going to come down with it, especially with the type of athletes they are. And I just felt like he was reluctant sometimes, but I think his confidence is definitely going to grow. He's very careful with the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over very much. So maybe it's a good thing, he's playing smart, but that's just something that I wanted to bring up since we were talking about, what we can see in this new offense. So, and then just be on the lookout if you're drafting fantasy soon. I know there's not a lot of preseason games, but I think Dak Prescott's going to be a quarterback that you want to keep your eye on. If he slips down the draft board with a potential explosive offense, he might be a steal and a possible league winner. So anyways, thanks again for listening to Dem Boyz Podcast, episode 13. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and all our socials at Dem Boyz Podcast, and keep an eye out for clips of the show. In case you can't catch full episodes, we'll break it down for you and leave them in bite-sized pieces for you to consume at your leisure. And thanks again, and go Cowboys.
Special thanks to Julio Carrillo for intro and outro music. Find him on Facebook